and like all the sounds are there already, the flow and the vibe is there, and then I basically will take it to Brandon and like go sit in his studio with him, and we'll just kind of like take it the extra 9 yards, and then he'll mix it and master it and all that stuff too. And then we usually like re-record the vocals because his studio is dope. So like
Yeah, the vocals sound pretty crisp in his studio.
yeah, so I'd say like I'd say like if you put on a spectrum, like I'd take it like 70%, and then he would take it the rest to make it like really slap.
And
So
with this last one, what was the process like with that?
oh, this one I just did it.
You did it all yourself.
Yeah, because like I don't like I'm not really good at remote collaboration.
Oh yeah, I guess you couldn't even get together if you wanted to.
Oh yeah, like
I
so
didn't really think about that.
yeah, like it's kind of like one of those things where it's like, I mean, I've tried to do co-writes over Zoom, and they're just awkward because like the latency, and like
Yeah.
if I play and sing something on guitar, like sometimes the person on the other end of the call doesn't hear it till like half a second later. So it's just like a pain in the ass to do it that way. So I was like, you know what? I really like, because I do produce a lot, but I just never really had the confidence to just like say that, you know what, like my production's pretty good. I'm just gonna like stick with it and not think that someone else is just gonna make it way better than I could.
Mm-hmm.
Because like that's the trap I fall into, because I'm like, well, if I gave it to Brandon, he could probably make it better. But then at the same time, it's like better is so subjective, and like I'm like, if I like how it sounds, then why is it bad? Like why, like, yeah, sure, Brandon maybe could add a few flavors to it that would make it like cooler, but at the same time it's like I'm not like playing shows anymore right now, so not like making that kind of income. So like I'm just gonna rely on my own sense of everything I've learned about music over the past however freaking long, right? And then just like trust my instinct. And I guess that's what I did on this one. And I did this whole one myself, and then I'm doing a like a quarantine EP, and I've produced like all the songs on it like fully myself, and I've mixed actually Conch mixed this one that you heard.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to be mixing uh, two of the other ones, and then Conch is mixing one more as well. But
It's crazy how we put confidence in other people before ourselves.
yeah, 100%.
More often than not. I've
Yeah.
done that. I've done that a lot. And even when it comes to producing, every time you give it to someone else, you're just allowing yourself to put off learning that process, you know?
Exactly.
So that's a tough thing.
Yeah, and then like honestly, man, like even mixing is something that I've been really trying to learn, and something that I'm struggling to learn because it's almost like math. Like I find
Yeah, I
it's
agree 100%. Mixing is one of those things where it's so technical that
yeah,
it's not as it's an art, but it's just
yeah.
such a different thing.
Oh, totally. It's almost, yeah, like it's funny because I think of it like just going back to like school and stuff, like high school, and like I was really good at like essay writing and like English and social studies and like very creative classes, but I was so bad at like math and physics
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that. And it's almost like mixing music is like a bit of a weird combination of both.
Yeah.
Almost like writing a math essay. Like how do you write a math essay? I mean, it's like that's kind of how I think about mixing is like, okay, I get the creative side of it. I get like how like the point is to just make it sound good on multiple different sources, but like then you get into the nuances of like compression and like all that EQ and all this stuff. And
Do you go into a mix intuitively, or do you follow any specific tutorials online and stuff like that? Or do you
so
just kind of mess around? Because I honestly, I'll watch a tutorial for like I can barely pay attention to tutorials. It takes
yeah.
me so much energy to do that.
Mhm.
Usually I'll just muck around with compression until I just feel the vibe. Like I try
Yeah.
to mix by vibe,
Yeah.
but also just make sure, like just know the math enough that I know that, frequencies aren't canceling each other
Right.
out and stuff doesn't sound muddy. But other than that, I try to mix with vibe.
Yeah, I'm very much the same. Like I'm kind of like I go into every mix like a rookie, and I'm
Yeah.
like,
You feel like you suck every time.
yeah, no, seriously. But then it's funny though, because I'm like, this sounds good. Like I'll listen to it on my speakers, I'll listen on my headphones, I'll listen on my crappy iPhone headphones, I'll go to my car, I'll play it in my car. And if
Mhm.
it sounds good in all of those places, I'm like, okay, well, what more could I do? And then I'll send it to someone else who's like a professional mixing engineer, and they'll be like, "Oh, I'd boost it a little bit in the 5K range, and maybe
I know
like
that.
throw a little parallel compression." I'm like, okay, like, I, and then I'll do those things, and then I'll feel like the difference is so minor that like
Mhm.
I'm like, did that even make a difference? And then I'll send it to them, and they'll be like, perfect.
Yeah, and
I'm like,
to
I
you,
didn't hear
it's
a
two
difference.
percent. It's two
Yeah, I'm
percent
like,
different.
how do you hear that? And I'm like getting such a big appreciation for mixing engineers because I'm like, man, you guys hear things that I literally just like completely fly over the radar for me. I'm like, this is not, I don't get how you pick that up, but I'm trying to like develop an ear for it. And this quarantine, ironically, has been the perfect time to do it because I spent so much time in front of my computer, just like learning, watching. I got a membership on Mix with the Masters and just like looking at how the pros mix the biggest songs and trying to pick up little tips here and there because I already have like a boatload of plugins. So I'm like, okay, how do these guys use these plugins? And like, are there any tips and ideas that they use that I could maybe try and incorporate and see how they sound?
I
So
would I would
yeah,
say that that track you sent me, well, if you could have told me anybody had mixed that, and I would have believed you. Like it sounded like anybody who's like a professional engineer, I would have believed you.
right.
Like that,
That one
it
was
sounds
Conch.
great.
That
Oh,
one
that
was
one was
Conch.
Conch,
I
yeah.
can't take credit for that one. And actually it's funny because I went to Conch's studio the other day and like he showed me like how he mixed it and even that was like, dude, like how do you know all this stuff?
Yeah, he works at a studio, so
That's true.
he
That
he has
actually,
a bit more time, and he's not just
oh
mixing.
definitely.
He's
And
not
he's
just
mixing
mixing
for other people
himself.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
What
such
about
is
the
life.
what about the mastering side of things?
I'm not even gonna try that. Like my 2020 goal is to survive and learn how to mix and like be able to feel like by the end of this year I can confidently mix one of my own tracks and not feel like self-conscious that somebody else could have just done it way better. Even though I know that there are people out there who could have done it better,
Mm.
100%. There will always be better people. But like I want to be able to get to the point by the end of the year where I can be like, nope, I've got the gear, I've got the plugins, and I've got the ear now finally, and I know that I can mix a song to a point where I'm happy with it personally and that I could put it out on the internet and feel confident that people will like it. Because at the end of the day, it's like the average listener is not like they don't give a rip how the mix sounds.
No, the song is everything.
Exactly. So like I would way rather have a great song with not the greatest mixing than a shitty song with
Yeah.
incredible mixing. You know what I mean? It's like you
You
look at all
can't.
the lo-fi stuff that's blowing up nowadays and it's like have you heard of Steve Lacy?
I have not.
So he's this dude, he's in this band called The Internet and
Oh yeah.
he's like this 18-year-old guy. He's probably a bit older now, but he records and produces all his music on GarageBand on his iPhone. And the dude gets millions of streams. He's like super big. Like he's done a song for Kendrick. He's done a song. I think he did a song for Drake. Like, and he does it all from his iPhone. And I'm
Yeah,
like, okay, this dude does like hit records on his iPhone. Like,
but it's
why?
the vibe.
It's
He
exactly it's
captures a certain vibe that goes
100%.
beyond any technicalities, you know?
Yeah, definitely. It's all the
That's
vibe.
that's the most important thing. And that vintage lo-fi thing is so big right now.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, you don't need to be, nothing needs to be super polished
No,
anymore.
totally. And it's almost like the opposite. It's like that crappy quality lo-fi thing almost sounds better now than
I think
completely
I think
beautiful,
music
immaculate.
music went to a point where everything got super polished, almost plasticky, and now
Yeah,
it's coming back and people want to
yeah,
hear stuff that sounds imperfect.
100%. That's
E-
so true.
Even vocal tuning.
Oh my gosh,
You'll
yeah.
notice a lot of tracks where the vocal tune, like the vocals might be slightly pitchy, but the vibe is on point, so you don't
Yeah.
worry about it.
And if you pitch corrected that, you would lose some of that authenticity from it. I feel like it's a cool time to learn this stuff because it's like I feel like we're very quickly, if not already there, but I feel like we're getting to a place where there's no rules anymore.
Mhm.
And some dude in his basement could make a hit record just as easily as somebody who works for Universal and
Yeah.
has the access to the best outboard gear in the world. So no rules. I kind of like it.
Yeah, me too. What's your plan for the next year as far as releases?
Uh, honestly, just like it's funny because I had such a big scope of what 2020 was supposed to look like.
What did the pre-quarantine scope look like?
Well, for starters, I was supposed to showcase at Canadian Music Week in May. Oh, I guess that's this month. I don't
Yeah,
even
that,
know what
that would
month
have
it.
been a week ago, probably.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
So okay, so I made it to the top 10 in this thing called CBC Searchlight,
Yeah, I've
which
heard
to
of that
me
before.
was like freaking not expected at all. In fact, so unexpected that I didn't even ask for votes, and I didn't ask when I first entered it. I didn't even like post that I was in it.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where I'm just so not confident that I'm gonna do well in that I just don't bother mentioning it. Like I didn't say to anyone that I was entering it. I just submitted a song because I got the email that said submit here. I was at the time that I got that email, I wasn't doing anything. So I literally just like I was like, oh, I might as well. So I just
Yeah.
applied for it. And then it's like nobody's business. And I was just like, I'm not asking for votes to just not make it far anyways. And then I got this email like a few months later saying I was like selected by the judges for the top 50 or something. And then I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. And then I started getting like some music industry connections that I've made over the years, like emailing me. They're like, congrats, you're in the top 50, dude. That's really cool. Like you should be like pushing this now because like that's actually pretty big because it's national. And I was like, okay. So then I started kind of asking for votes, but still not in an annoying way. Like I was just like, hey
How do you
guys,
feel about that process of asking for
I
votes?
hate it. I hate it more
I
than anything.
despise that.
Dude, it makes me want to just not do music. Like if that's literally what it comes down to,
Yeah.
is this like voting popularity contest. That's kind of why like shows like like The Voice and all that kind of stuff where you're so dependent on like people voting for you. It's
On
like
on
we're
that note, do you feel like the music industry is like that right now? As far as how aggressive you have to be with putting yourself out there? You almost have to be annoying about it.
I don't know actually. That's a good question. I feel like yes and no to an extent, but I also do feel that like people pick up on bullshit really quickly.
Mhm.
And I think like if you're very obviously trying to fish for attention and like
Yeah.
you're almost like selling out in a way. I feel like people are smart enough to know that and they're smart enough to know like when someone's trying really extra hard to like be something and to blow up and whatever.
Yeah.
And it just comes off as a little off-putting. And maybe this is just my opinion and nobody else feels the same way.
No, I agree with you.
Yeah, like
I
I
agree
don't
with you
know.
100%.
Yeah, because like even dude, honestly, like the amount of people doing live streaming concerts and like weekly things, like good on them. Like if you are a go-getter and you have the patience and the consistency to do that, great. But I'm not that person. Like I've not done one Instagram live concert on my own page so far, mostly just because I just don't know like what it's accomplishing really. Like, and I'm not saying I'm not going to because I probably will eventually, but um I'm just trying to think about it in the sense of like what can I actually accomplish from just like playing my guitar in front of people, like whoever wants to listen. And so I don't know. I feel like authenticity at the end of the day is clearly what time and time again seems to be selling. I think of like someone like Billie Eilish, and even like going as far back as to like Ed Sheeran, who's like who at the time of him breaking out was like a chubby ginger dude.
Yeah.
It's like he's not some sort of like heartthrob or anything like that, you know what I mean? And yet people just loved that he was just him, and that was a huge role that played a huge role in why he blew up. And even Billie Eilish, like she's very edgy and kind of weird and like creepy a little bit, but I
Hmm.
feel like people love that, and like they love that she's just like authentic to herself and like who she is. And I think that goes a lot further and has much greater longevity than just like trying to plaster yourself all over social media and create this persona that isn't real. But
Yeah, and I feel, do you feel exhausted by having to put yourself out there all the time? Do you feel like Instagram has become something where you have to make your quota as far as content is concerned?
yeah, um,
Because
I sorry.
that was kind of relating to that post you were saying, and I relate to that a lot about, striking the balance between just being mentally healthy and not being obsessed with social media all the
Yeah,
time.
for sure. Dude, honestly, at the end of the day, I feel like we have such a finite amount of time to live, and if we're spending the majority of that time worrying about what other people think about us and like trying to impress people and trying to like come out looking like you're the top dog and like you have it all together, I think that's so unhealthy, and I almost feel like it's a waste of time. And I know that people would disagree because obviously there's an extent to which you need to do that if you want to be successful in a certain industry. But at the end of the day, man, like time is so it's so uncertain. Like any one of us could catch COVID-19 and be the odd case of a 20 something that dies from it. You know what I mean? Like I don't want to be morbid or anything, but like we have these like 5-year plans or 20-year plans, and it's like you might not even live that long. Like crazy things happen all the time, right? And
How
so
do
the way
you
I think,
how do you find the balance between living in the now and also focusing on the future? Because I do think there's a balance. How do you do that in your personal life and career life?
um I really try to be present with where I'm at, and I do. So it's almost like I plan differently. Like I think about it like, okay, in the next little while, what am I hoping to accomplish? And what can I do right now that will slowly or drastically push me towards that goal? Um, and I almost try to like give myself a certain amount of leeway every single day. Like I literally have like I'm really big on like writing lists.
Oh yeah.
It's almost like an OCD thing for me.
Yeah, it makes you feel accomplished for
Yeah,
sure.
100%. So
Even if it's tiny little things.
yeah, absolutely. Like clean toilet. Like I literally write
Straight up.
that and then cross it out because it makes me feel good crossing.
Especially right now. It's so hard to you're just stuck at home. It's
Yeah,
so hard to be structured.
yeah,
Even just, when this thing first hit, I wasn't waking up at the same time every day.
yeah,
And I noticed just mentally I was getting anxious and
yeah.
feeling down, even though I had really nothing I had to do technically.
Right.
As soon as I started being like, you know what, I'm gonna wake up at 8, I'm gonna eat breakfast at this time, I'm gonna go
Mhm.
to or work out at home at this time,
Yeah.
do whatever. That's when I started to kind of put the pieces together mentally and feel a lot better.
Yeah. And and honestly, I've almost been structuring to the point where it's kind of actually causing me the opposite, and it's making me stressed.
You're going too
Uh,
far in the other
yeah,
direction.
dude, because literally I try to pencil in sleep. Like that's when you know that you've gone too far. When you're like, all right, so like in my schedule, I'll sleep from this time to this time. I'll wake up at this time. And I mean, obviously to an extent you have to do that, but like it was getting weird for me. Like I'm like, okay, I need to at least get 7 hours of sleep. So if I go to bed at this time, I'll wake up roughly at this time. It's like, and then I get stressed about sleeping. And if I'm laying in bed and I can't fall asleep, I feel stressed because I'm like, oh shoot, I'm not going to get 7 hours anymore because I didn't fall asleep when I planned to fall asleep. Does that make sense? It's like
Mhm.
it gets really weird. That's just me. I'm very weird. But anyways, so now I'm trying to like think about it differently, and I make myself goals in different increments of importance where I'm like, okay, this is my A list, this is my B list, this is my C list, and then everything that doesn't make the C list is like, if I get to it, cool. If not, whatever. So every single day, like for example, today my A list was having this call with you. I had a call before this, and I have to record vocals for a song.
Mhm.
So I will
Those
get. Sorry, go
those
ahead.
are the non-negotiables. Those are
Exactly.
100% getting done.
Yeah. So if I get those done, I could literally watch Tiger King for the rest of the day and feel
Feel all right.
and yeah, and I'll be like, cool, I accomplished my three main things and I can now chill.
Mhm.
But for me, I typically will do my B list as well, and then C list if I still have some energy, I'll do them. But if not, I'm not stressing.
So is when you say B list, is that more of personal things?
Yeah, B list
Less
would be
career.
like, no, they would still be career. Like, so for example, A list would be like anything that has a deadline,
Mhm.
either a self-imposed deadline or a deadline from somebody else. And so that would be like, I need to record vocals, I need to get this song finished, I need to do this. A B list mode would be like, I'm doing a bunch of online classes right now for like mixing and stuff. So my B list would be like,
Okay.
finish
Cool.
watching this series.
Yeah. No,
Eh,
it doesn't have a deadline, but it's just something
exactly.
you need to make a
Yeah,
priority.
totally. Like, I have so many windows open in my internet browser and it stresses me out. So I like just Xing them off because it shrinks and shrinks and shrinks. So it's more of
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. It's like scratching an itch. It's like I want to just get that thing done so I don't have to think about it anymore. Little things like I need to change my guitar strings. But it's like I'm not gonna die if I do that today. If I don't do that today,
Mhm.
I could do that tomorrow or next week, and it's not that big of a deal. But yeah, so I find that that really helps me because that way, if I record my vocals, have this call with you, and that's all I did today, I can chill and I can just now it's like, okay, all bets are off. I can just do whatever now.
Do you feel yourself being paralyzed when you look at the bigger picture? When you think about a huge goal, like you want to be at this, and we were talking about that 5-year, 10-year goal.
Right.
I find myself personally, if I think about something, even this, like I wanted to start a podcast for a long time, but even just thinking about, I need to have this podcast, I need to be this good at communicating,
Yeah.
blah blah blah, and I think about this huge overarching thing of what the podcast could be.
Yeah.
It's also in music as well, where you have this huge grand vision rather than just thinking about little micro things that you can be doing to get you to that point.
Hmm.
Like, to me, it's so much more beneficial to just think about little things every day
Yeah.
that set me up to become that person in the future,
Yeah.
rather than obsess about the big picture. Because whenever I look at the big picture, I'm just paralyzed. I'm like,
Yeah.
I feel sick to my stomach. I'm
Yeah.
sweating. It's not good. That's where the anxiety comes for me personally.
I would say I'm exactly the same. Um, Sometimes it's hard not to think about the big picture, especially like, I don't know, if an artist I like comes out with an album and it's like such a good album and I'm kind of like sitting there like I could never make an album that like that, and they're gonna go on a tour and it's sold out and I'm like, man, like I would love to do that. And it's like that is in many ways a goal, but like you just said, I feel like people who get so caught up in that way of thinking, and it's totally dependent on the type of person you are, because I know for me, like when I think about life like that, I kind of get like you and I get paralyzed and I'm like, it just makes me not want to work. It almost makes me want to quit.
Yeah.
But then there's people who look at that and they look at their long-term goal and that fuels them. And that's what makes them get up every day because they're like, I want to be there. So I got to work this hard to be there.
Hmm.
So it's kind of one of those things where it's like, if that works for you, then sweet. But for me, I know for a fact, I'm like, the more I think about that and the more I think about this like big, huge idea of an end goal, the less I feel capable of achieving that.
Mhm.
So I'm more kind of just like, you know what? I'm going to do whatever I can every day to move just a little bit closer.
Yeah, because even when you're talking about producing your own music now, if you went back 5 years, that might have looked like an impossible task,
Absolutely.
you know? But
Yeah.
you just slowly worked on production every day. You got a little bit more confident, and eventually it's like it just happens all of a sudden.
Yep.
It's even with
And then
like
yeah, it's almost like you can't even like point the moment where it happened. You're just like, oh
yeah, you're
shit,
like,
I can
"Oh,
do
I'm
that.
doing the thing I wanted to
Yeah,
do."
exactly. And that's such a big, like that happens so much in my life where I'm like, I'll be like, I really want to master this skill or get really good at this thing. And then it'll just kind of happen through time because I put in the work. And then I almost like forgot that that was a thing. I almost forgot that that was like something that I set out to do.
Mhm. 'Cause
It's,
you just got lost in the
yeah.
process.
And that's the best part of it. It's like
Yeah.
that's when you know, and that's when you know that it's something worth doing because it's like if you hit that flow state and you're like so into it that you just like lose track of time
Mhm.
and it's that immersive, I feel like that's when you know that you're doing the right thing. So,
One thing I've noticed about, when I'm making music, I get into a flow state. It feels really good. I'm very passionate about it. But there's also something that creeps in where I think about how people are going to react to the music.
mhm,
And then I've noticed that just like sucking the passion out of me. Like I've been putting too much, I've been making music for so long. I want it to go somewhere. And me wanting it so bad is actually taking it away from me.
mhm.
Like creatively speaking. Have you noticed that at all?
Yeah, in fact, like, even just with things like posting things on social media, I always think like, "Will people even like this?" Like, sometimes I just wanna post something just because I think it's cool.
Yeah.
I'm like and then I always have to, like, think about it, and then I battle my critiquing part of my brain that's like,
Yeah.
"That's stupid. People are gonna think you're nerdy. People are gonna think you're weird."
Like
But
the
then
Harry Potter trap.
yeah, I was like, literally, I was like, I wasn't even gonna post that, but I'm like, I
I
don't
liked it.
care. I was like, who freaking cares? Like, I like Harry Potter. I like trap music. I'm gonna just make this, and
Well,
who cares?
you were doing some really cool memes there for a while. That church meme, or was
Oh yeah,
can't remember what it was, but that was so funny, man.
oh
Like
dude.
it was so specific, and I totally got it right away. It's just like the distorted voice, like you freaking fricker.
Yeah,
I was like, oh my goodness, this is
uh,
perfect.
it's just TikTok stuff. Like,
Yeah.
TikTok's just funny, and like, oh man, that's the other thing is like even something like TikTok. Like, I didn't get it thinking that I was gonna actually try to make videos on it.
Hmm.
I more got it because I thought Vine was the funniest thing in the world, and
Oh
like I
yeah, Vine.
loved Vine.
Hmm.
And TikTok has in many ways kind of replaced Vine, and it's just like humor that you can get so instantly. And if I'm in a
Yeah.
bad mood, I will literally just like go to TikTok and then forget why I was mad.
How long are the videos on TikTok?
They can be up to a minute, but most of the most successful ones are typically like
Not
like
even.
under 30 seconds.
Yeah, your video was under 30 seconds, was it
Yeah, it was
not?
quick. You want to try to be funny in as little time as possible because people in general have a very low attention span,
Mhm.
but especially on TikTok, where it's so easy to just go to the next video, it's way harder to keep people's attention if you don't do something or say something in the first like millisecond that really
Mhm.
gets them. And so I don't know, it's just like experimenting. But yeah, like I'll still be making those meme videos. It's just like I haven't really felt the inspiration to do one.
No, fair enough.
And that church one, like it wasn't an original idea. Like I saw someone else do something similar,
Yeah.
and I just like made my own spin on it.
Yeah.
So like I can't take credit for like those things. But that's literally what TikTok is like someone does something hilarious, and
And
then
you kind of caught,
everybody
yeah.
and it becomes a challenge, and then everybody starts doing that challenge, and then they just get progressively more creative and funny and outlandish,
Mm-hmm.
and that's literally TikTok in a nutshell. Um, so yeah, I don't know. It's just like I was bored.
You're talking about, you have to steal people's attention right away. I think about that with music, and I kind of worry about how oversaturated everything is now.
Mhm.
Even if your song makes it onto a huge Spotify playlist, most of the time, I don't think people are even going into the artist profile. They're
Right.
just they're just listening to the track. They're like, oh, that might have been cool, but there's a million other tracks I can be listening to.
Hmm.
That's one thing that I find myself getting very anxious about. It's just like, what is the point if there is millions of artists doing the exact or like close to what I'm doing? Like how do you kind of overcome that obstacle and keep pushing forward despite that?
Uh, that's funny because I've been thinking a lot about the over glorification of Spotify playlists
Hmm.
and just like playlists in general, and just how people put it on such a high pedestal where they literally will determine the success of a release based on whether it was placed on a playlist or not. And if it wasn't, they consider that release and that song to be a failure. And if it is placed, then they feel good about themselves, and then they have this like false expectation that the next song they release is going to be put on one as well. And then if it doesn't get put on that, then they feel bad about themselves again, and it becomes this toxic cycle of like
Yeah.
needing affirmation from
Oh, for sure.
Spotify.
Yeah.
And
Well,
then sorry, go ahead.
you're just wondering if the Spotify overlords are going to accept you or not.
Exactly. It is exactly that. Like you're taking your sacrifices to the Spotify gods and hope they look down upon you and accept your
Yeah,
sacrifice.
have mercy on you. Yes, we will.
Exactly.
We will grant you access.
Exactly. And if they don't, then you go away feeling like you're a failure and you should quit music, and it's so unhealthy, and it's
Hmm.
and it's just funny that like it's so easy to fall prey to that and just base your self-worth as an artist and just even as a person on, because I've had conversations with artists that I know personally who have literally been like, I just feel like, what is the point of doing music anymore? Like I put out music all the time. I've never gotten put on a playlist. And then this other artist who I know puts out a song and they get put on a playlist. It's like, what's the point? Like, is this telling me I shouldn't do music anymore? And I'm like, no, like playlists are not the like the be all and end all that everybody seems to think they are. Because you're completely right when you just said that like it's very unlikely that anyone's going to go into your profile off of like seeing you on New Music Friday or something like that, right? Because
Hmm.
I mean, maybe the chance of that happening now might be increased, but I know for me, like I listen to music primarily. I'm guilty of not listening to that much music in this quarantine because I listen to music most when I'm in the gym and when I'm driving,
Yeah.
two of which things I don't do a whole lot of anymore. And so I don't really just like sit at my desk and like listen to music because I need something. I'm very like I get distracted easily, so I need like a video in front of me or something. I can't just like listen to music. Um,
Do you ever go for walks and just really listen to music or
no, I don't,
no?
and maybe I should, but it's just
That's something
something.
I do where I'm kind of moving and I'm just trying to focus on the music because a lot of the
Yeah.
times, we tend to listen to music passively.
Oh yeah,
We're
100%.
doing
I'm so
something
guilty.
else and music is on the side,
Yeah.
you know?
Like the only time I will listen to music at home now is while I'm showering or while I'm cleaning. So if
Hmm.
I'm like vacuuming or whatever, like I have my headphones on and I'm listening to music then.
Hmm.
But yeah, like I can't just like sit and like listen to music but yeah, like going for a walk and doing that, that might be a good idea for me. But anyways, back to the original question. Wait,
We were talking about Spotify playlists. I'm not even like, I know that people are putting a lot of weight on the Spotify playlist, but for me, it's thinking more of there's so many artists on Spotify. when I go on Spotify, go to my Discovery Weekly, I
Mhm.
check out all this stuff. There's just so many songs out there.
Yeah.
That's what discourages me. It's like there's so many people just throwing music out into the world. What makes me special? Like how dare I even enter this? Like that's something that comes in like that comes into my
Yeah.
psyche sometimes. And that makes me want to quit pursuing it as a career.
Right.
Every once in a while, like if I'm being totally honest with you, 3 days ago, I was in such a bummy mood that I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna sell all my studio
Oh,
gear.
man,
Dude,
don't.
I got into that headspace where I was just like, this is something I've been doing for so long. I haven't seen anything come out of it. And there's things that I haven't worked on as hard. Like I do not work on the marketing as hard as I work on the music because the marketing side of things just does not come naturally to me at all.
Yeah.
And even when I'm on social media, like I've deleted all my photos. Like I hate Instagram. Like I hate being on Instagram. It makes me it makes me anxious being on Instagram. Even I'm just scrolling. Like if I wasn't a musician, I probably would not have the app.
I am exactly the same. I literally only have social media because I'm a musician and I need it.
And you're a smart guy. You've probably looked into the studies showing how social media is making our generation depressed and whatnot.
100%.
And then you're
Yeah.
like, well, what am I going to do if I want to start a business online or I want to
Yeah.
be a successful producer or
Yeah.
musician? that's
I
that's
think
the hard part for me.
yeah. And I think so there's a couple things I'm thinking right now. First of all, I feel like that's why I tend to be a little bit over honest on social media. Like I feel like I call it out for what it is.
Yeah.
But like I'm not afraid to say on Instagram that I hate Instagram.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And and it's funny enough when I post things like that post that you were referring to earlier, the amount of engagement I get on those posts is more than anything else I ever post. Like when I post and say things like just how I'm feeling and like how social media is just a bummer right now and it just sucks and I keep deleting it and all this stuff. It's crazy the amount of people who are like, "Oh my gosh, me too."
Hmm. No,
Whereas
we all feel that.
yeah, but it's like no one says it and nobody talks about it because
Yeah.
it's
Well,
almost like if you do, then it's almost like you have this fear that like the the Instagram overlords are gonna like, you know, like kick you out of the cool kids club or it's almost like a cult. Like you
yeah.
can't talk about what's wrong with the cult, otherwise the cult will kick you out.
Hmm.
Nobody wants to get kicked out of the cult.
There's also a fear that because we were talking about how people they're attracted to authenticity, and there are people that kind of play the victim on Instagram a lot. You'll notice that, or on social media. So
Mhm.
that almost makes you scared of being honest. Even like when you have a genuine thing to say,
Yeah,
that's a legitimate thing. That post you made was really good. But then there are also people that are just whining, and then you kind of worry about even like I feel like you know depression has also almost been glamorized in music.
yeah,
That whole thing is really toxic to me, and it's like and when someone's like using that to promote their brand,
yeah,
I feel like that's really taking away from people who are actually depressed
for
or
sure.
actually anxious.
Yeah, 100%.
And that's something where I'm like, well, should I even be honest, or am I going to be one of those guys? Like
Yeah,
that's something I've been thinking about too. But that goes to show that if you're authentic, but when you open up and you're actually authentic about something, people can sniff that out.
yeah.
You know.
And it's all about presentation because like you said, you'll know when people are just whining for attention. But like I'd be hard pressed to find anybody who would talk shit if you were like, I've really been struggling with self-doubt lately and
Yeah.
like if someone were to call you out on that, like screw that person.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Like I don't, like instant block. Like I don't need that kind of
No.
crap in my life. Like and first of all, I feel like it's a generally accepted fact that that's not okay.
Hmm.
Um but I think yeah, it very clearly does come across quite obviously when someone is just fishing for attention
Yeah.
and when someone is being truthfully like, I'm not doing well.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, sometimes you need that. Sometimes you need to give people permission to like almost like subconsciously say that it's okay to feel the way you're feeling. And I almost felt like that was kind of maybe a little bit of what I was going for with that post I made was like, um, it's okay not to have everything figured out right now. Because I think that's the biggest consistent thing that I keep hearing from people that I'm talking to now is they don't know what to do and they're panicking because they feel like their career is like over.
Yeah.
Because all their gigs have been canceled, their tour is canceled. They don't know if they should release their album this year anymore. They don't know if they should do this. They don't know if they should do that. And it's like, just take a second and breathe. You don't need to have the answers right now. And just like focus on real life and not social media life because you know
I
what I
feel
mean?
I feel like the fact that this whole thing has shaken up our routines and now we have so much time. We have so much time to think now. So
Mhm.
everyone's just overthinking about everything. That's where a lot of the anxiety is coming from.
A lot of people cannot handle being alone with their thoughts.
Hmm. That's a big
And
thing.
that's a really sad reality actually of our generation specifically and the generations that are younger than us.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah,
You
like I feel like for example, like my grandparents, like I could go to their house and they will not have the television on. They will not be on their phones. They'll just be like chilling. They'll be reading, they'll
and
be
they're
talking.
peaceful and
They're peaceful.
their
They're
minds are at peace.
100%. And like they won't have like I won't feel like um or they don't feel like they need to entertain me or something and I don't feel like they should entertain me. Like it's kind of like I just like being mellow with them
Hmm.
and it's so clear to me that they're so just like okay with themselves and they're so okay with where they're at that they don't other voices speaking into their lives all the time. And I think that's the problem with our generation and the younger ones is that we are so addicted to
Stimulus.
stimulus and like
Bombarded by constant stimulus. And that's the
100%.
thing. We're the first generation to have access to all this technology to
Mhm.
the point where, if you want to learn about mixing, you can look up millions of videos on mixing. You want to
Yep.
learn absolutely anything. Like that's the great thing about technology. There's podcasts,
Yeah.
YouTube,
You can
all
get
this.
like a degree's worth of knowledge
Oh,
for
a
free.
hundred percent. Yeah, but at the same time, even me, like I look to podcasts as a very positive thing.
Mhm.
I really enjoy listening to podcasts. I learn
Same.
a bunch, but I've noticed lately that I've had to control my podcast consumption to the point where, I'll listen to a podcast on the way to work, or I'll listen to a podcast on the way to the gym. I'll listen to music at the gym. It's like constantly there needs to be something in my ear
Mhm.
or something playing in front of me. And that's something that's causes tons of mental health issues.
Yeah.
It's just the constant stimulus to the point where I don't know if you have any sort of meditation practice or anything like that, but every time I go to do that, it
Mhm.
is so difficult for me. Like 10
Yeah.
minutes alone with my thoughts, just anxious thoughts. Like it
Yeah.
just hits me every time, which is
Yeah.
a normal thing during meditation. But I don't know if generations before us had to deal with that as
Yeah.
much.
I wouldn't think so. In fact, even just like hearing my parents talk about what their childhoods were like
Hmm.
and now how they are, it's almost like because now my parents are glued to their iPads and their TV, just the way that like me and my siblings might be. Whereas before we were born, there was none of that. Like they actually went out and did things. They had hobbies. They had things that they were interested in, and now they just like watch TV and consume like whatever the world is wanting to tell them. You know what I mean? Um, and it's like, yeah, it's. I feel like it's so detrimental to just like feeling a sense of I don't know, like okayness about where you're at and stuff, and just like the constant comparison with everybody else is just like crippling. And I think that's hugely because we don't have this time often, like just being alone. And even like, for example, me, like when I'm just trying to be like present and just like in the moment, like I get really antsy and fidgety and like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm just thinking like, okay, when is this over? Like when can I go get back to what I was doing?
Hmm.
Um, and I don't know. I kind of just feel like everything in moderation. I've always heard that statement before. Everything in moderation. And I think that's so true because like I'm exactly like you, where sometimes I get sick of podcasts and I listen to podcasts constantly,
Yeah. Every day.
every single day.
There may have been, you know, like in a week,
Yeah,
there may be one day where I don't listen to
yeah,
podcasts.
100%. I would argue that I listen to podcasts more than I listen to music.
Oh, I do 100%.
Yeah, it's which is so funny, but
I'm
uh,
sure like podcast to music is 7 or probably 80-20.
yeah, I
Yeah.
would say so. Um, yeah, and I mean, there's times where I get sick of podcasts, and I'm like, okay, I'm not going to listen to podcasts. I just want to listen to music now. But it's like I feel like finding a balance in everything is so important, and that includes social media, going out and doing things. I feel like everything in excess is has potential to be like too much of a good thing becomes a bad thing.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't know.
Maybe a little bit of a bad thing is a good thing. Binge watch a little bit of Netflix.
Yeah, and that's not even necessarily a bad thing. Like
No, it's not a bad
I feel
thing.
like there's this whole like BS mentality that like if you watch Netflix all day, you're useless and you're not doing anything. It's like no,
Yeah,
like
there's a balance there because there are the people that legitimately do absolutely like all they're
yeah,
doing is just consuming.
exactly.
But it's there's that, and then there's this hustle culture where like give
Oh
up sleep
yeah.
for four
Oh, those
hours.
people piss me off.
Like like even people like Gary V, like
I love Gary Vee,
I
but I knew
respect
you
Gary
were
V 100%,
yeah,
but sometimes he just exhausts me. It's like,
dude.
dude,
Yes,
I cannot, I love sleeping.
yeah,
I need time to take care of myself
100%.
in other ways. Like to me, it's like I think of all these different aspects of my life. There's health, career, family, relate like love, romantic relationships. These are
Yeah,
all things that you have to work on equally to be
mhm,
successful. Like if you gave away your health in order to become something, like a famous musician,
yeah,
you wouldn't feel successful,
mhm.
if you were unhealthy.
No, and that's very clearly seen in so many.
Yeah, and even people who chase money, 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 and they haven't taken care of their, bodies and
Yeah,
mind.
and then it's like why? Okay, and you're wondering why they're addicted to drugs. You know what I mean?
It's like you need to take care of every little aspect of your life equally,
Yeah.
you know.
So no, I totally agree, and that's something that our I think our generation needs to learn, but it's becoming increasingly unlikely that it's going to learn that just because it's almost like culture is pushing us away from that.
And do you feel like nowadays, even just, people are not having a narrative to follow? There's no foundation. Everything is so secular now to the point where do people go for meaning?
Mm,
That's a big thing for me. It's like back in the day, like our parents went to church, they had some sort of like spiritual connection. They had a time where people would come together and gather.
yeah.
But now it's so like I feel like it's so easy to be nihilistic in 2020.
Mhm.
That's one thing I've been thinking about a lot. That's why I've started this podcast actually,
Right.
to go into those kinds of issues.
For sure. Yeah. I don't know. Like for me, like I grew up in a Christian background, but I wasn't really like into it,
Mhm.
and I wasn't like I didn't get it really because like that's partly because my parents were like really strict about it,
Yeah, that's
and like
usually strict parents usually if people get pushed. like if religion gets pushed on them at an early age, they tend
Oh,
to
100%.
rebel. That's what
Yeah,
I did that 100%. I went to the opposite side of the spectrum,
yeah,
binge watching Sam Harris
yeah.
and stuff like that. I was just like,
Full, yeah, full through, yeah. Full
go on
like,
though, sorry.
um, yeah. So like, I don't know. It wasn't really explained to me when I was younger. I didn't get it, and then I feel like when I went to university, like I took clinical psychology, and so that's obviously like a very secular dominated mindset and
Mm.
field. So like
Did
I
you
was
did you feel like there was any kind of spirituality or like anything that you could kind of take from that though, or
from psychology.
yeah, or was it just very materialist?
You know what? So this actually kind of goes into my story. Basically, I had to figure out in university like what do I believe,
Hmm.
um, and I really need it because I'm a very like rational, like logical person, and I need like an evidential basis to believe in something. Otherwise, I'm not going to believe in it.
Yeah.
And so I feel like in university, I was learning a lot of psychology, obviously, and I was being all the things that I kind of learned or thought growing up were kind of being challenged. And I was like, hey, I need to either figure because I'm very much like I can't exist unless I know why.
Yeah.
Like if there's no reason, then I don't want to. Like you know what I mean? Like it's just like
Well,
I
I think everyone feels that way.
yeah,
I don't really buy into the fact that anyone is truly atheistic.
right.
I don't really think anyone's just like nothing matters. I'm just here. If nothing mattered, why are you doing anything? Why are you pursuing love? Love isn't
Yeah.
even a thing.
Yeah.
Like that's one thing. Like it's so extreme. You have people that are, fundamentalists, and then you have people that are completely just atheistic. And
Yeah.
there's got to be a place in the middle. you know.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, dude, honestly, like for me at least it was I spent a lot of time researching, um, and I came out the other end fully invested in psychology, but also like I found like a whole new level of my own personal faith, and it still looks quite different from my parents because like my parents, um, it's different for them because they don't really feel like they need to ask big questions to believe what they
Hmm.
believe, but I did,
Yeah.
and I believe the same things as them now, but I think I do to a much greater degree than they do. But the thing is, they don't need to believe it to the extent that I do to believe it.
Hmm.
Um, so for me, like that was a big process of just like learning about faith and like Christianity and what that means and how that applies to the world. And now coming back to your other question about the spiritual aspects of psychology, I think one of the things that really drew me into psychology is how many links it had with my spiritual convictions, and the fact that I could almost use psychology through a Christian lens and almost make more sense of it.
Yeah.
And there were so many aspects of it and so many aspects of just like human morality and just the human psyche that just made so much more sense through the lens of us being created and having purpose and having intention and having like value
Hmm.
than it did stripping all of that away and looking at it from an entirely atheistic point of view.
Yeah.
So that all being said, like I feel like my faith was strengthened substantially in university and through learning psychology and through connecting the two and through understanding like the implications of all that kind of stuff. And
Were you
so
were
now
you listening to people like Jordan Peterson
oh, 100%.
during this time?
I'm a big disciple of Jordan Peterson. I've read his books. I've even his big ass book,
What's it called?
I forget it.
Maps of Meaning.
Maps of Meaning.
Maps.
Yeah,
That one takes. You know what? I'm having to break that one down into little
yeah,
chunks. I've read 12 Rules for Life, 12 Rules for Life 2 times now.
Right. And see that book, like 12 Rules for Life, is essentially Maps of Meaning
Yeah.
condensed.
Hmm.
Um, and if you've read 12 Rules, like you've pretty much read Maps, but Maps is just like so much more in depth
Yeah.
and so much more detailed. But yeah.
But as far as bridging the gap between psychology and religion
Yeah,
and spirituality, I think he does the best job of that,
he's great at it.
personally.
Yeah.
Yeah. He definitely helped me kind of put those pieces together,
Hmm.
for sure.
Yeah. OG Jordan Peterson.
Yeah.
Shout out JP.
It's kind of weird. He kind of went off the grid for a while there.
Well, dude, he was
Yeah.
struggling with like
Like
drug addiction, and I think he almost I think he overdosed or something like that.
yeah, hoping he comes
But
back soon, because I want
yeah, I think he's okay. Like, his daughter posted something saying that um, her dad was recovering, and um, but yeah, that was pretty scary because it's like you think of somebody as influential and seemingly put together as Jordan Peterson, and then you
to.
realize that like, oh shoot, he still has problems.
Oh, for sure,
He
man.
still has struggles.
We're
So
gonna struggle to the end of our days. That's
yeah,
just part of the human condition.
for sure.
That's why we need these things. We need meaning in our lives and something to follow.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
even just tying in, I feel like with music, there's there's like a different reason you pursue music. There's the egoic reason where you just want people to think you're awesome. You want to be famous. You want all this attention. But then there's the other, the other reason, which is you want to serve people. You want
Mhm.
to create music that helps people.
Yep.
Have you noticed yourself kind of wanting either one of those things in like an unhealthy, or wanting more of an egoic, uh, or like you've been pursuing it for the wrong reasons at times? Do you feel
Yeah.
that way?
Okay, so it's never, I can confidently say that it's never gotten to the point where it was more than my um, non-egoic reason.
Yeah.
Because that reason is so deeply ingrained within me that there's like literally nothing that would change that. But definitely there are times, and it's not so much that I want. It's not so much that I want to be known per se. It's more that I just have this like competitive nature that like I want to be the best at something.
Yeah.
Like for example, like I think of someone like John Mayer. Like I consider him to be like one of the best guitar players. And I sometimes I'm like, well, I want to be the best something. Like I want people to be like for my name to come up when someone's like, oh, who's the best like singer or like songwriter or something like that. Like sometimes I'm like, man, like I wish that was me. I wish that
Yeah.
like I
And
would have the
that's healthy ambition. As long as you keep
yeah,
that in check. That's the thing where I feel like that's the balance that you have to strike.
yeah,
Having that healthy ambition, but also wanting to serve people rather than
100%.
just serve your ego. There's just
Yeah,
a healthy mix of those two.
right. And I think it completely depends on where that sentiment comes from
Yeah.
because just as healthy as it can be, and it can be healthy ambition, I think um for me at least, I can speak for myself and say that it comes from insecurity,
Hmm.
and it comes from me feeling like I need to earn respect and earn everybody's admiration, and if I don't, then I feel crappy about myself.
Yeah.
And so that, I feel like that more often is what it ends up being, is like you're actually deeply insecure, and so you want to be known as being the best whatever, so that you feel like that you feel self-validated because you know that everybody thinks of you in that light. But then what happens when someone comes up, some virtuoso like kid comes out of nowhere and is better than you, and everybody's like, yo, this kid's better than you?
Yeah.
Then how do you feel? You're like, what, in your 30s now, regarded as the best whatever, and some 12-year-old
Yeah,
is like,
it goes back, like, to bring up Jordan Peterson again when he says, compare yourself to who you were yesterday
yesterday.
rather
Yeah,
than someone else today.
yeah,
That's
definitely.
so important
Yeah,
because all you can do is better yourself, keep moving forward. If every day you're getting better, that's all you can really do.
for sure.
If you're constantly comparing yourself, you're just going to be miserable for the rest of your life.
Yeah, definitely.
All right,
Yeah,
man. We're wrapping up on an hour here, actually.
cool.
That went by really quick.
Yeah, no kidding. This is a good talk. I love these things.
Yeah, man. It was really good having you. We'll probably wrap it up now. Just tell everybody where they can find you.
Sure. So literally anywhere under Josh Sahunta, Sahunta, Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. Um,
Awesome. His TikTok's really funny.
thanks.
When does that new track come out?
May 29th.
May 29th.
Yeah,
Awesome.
first release in a while, so I'm kind of excited about it.
Cool. I'll put the pre-save link when I drop this.
Thanks so much, man.
Okay, sounds good. Peace, buddy.
Take care.